And I'm very happy to have not just these past 2 years, but for many years before that, we have worked together with our Palestinian kin to shed light on the ongoing genocide in Gaza and Palestine. So it's with that I call up from the Palestinian Youth Movement, Leah Kayali.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leah Kayali. I'm with the Palestinian Youth Movement. And just to describe myself, I'm wearing a red keffiyeh. I'm wearing black, a shirt that says the Palestinian Youth Movement with the map of Palestine on it. I'm wearing a Totonac headband, and I have very messy curly hair. On this day of mourning, it always forces me to reflect, especially in these last 2 years, on grief, loss, and survival. As Kelly Hayes, a Menominee writer and organizer, explains, mourning is the process of being undone by loss and remade in its wake. When we let our bodies grieve, we're metabolizing violence and death. Mourning is supposed to be retrospective. We mourn something that happened in the past, the death of a loved one, the theft of a home, the life we once had. But colonialism robs us of mourning itself in this sense because it rips us as Indigenous people from our roots and supplants an ongoing structure of violence. A genocide factory that breaks our bones, steals our land, and criminalizes our existence. It is this ceaselessness of violence that forces us to count the mounting bodies rather than visit the old graves. And even now, in this so-called ceasefire in Gaza, the colonial violence factory never rests. The Zionists continue to use aid as a weapon in a feeble attempt to force our people into capitulation. And when that doesn't work, they continue on to murder. Over 300 Palestinians have been murdered by Zionism since Trump's so-called peace plan went into effect. Shame. When I look to the contents of this colonial quote-unquote peace, what I see are attempts of forced surrender that will not work. Blood-soaked rice strewn on the street, bones protruding from a child's shriveled stomach, scalding water disfiguring the flesh of prisoners. Colonialism has imposed death on the daily stuff of life. A bag of flour, a tea kettle, a stomach ache are forever transformed. We are undone and remade in a perpetuum mobile. This genocide has forced me to reorient to the very concept of mourning. It forces humility like a sucker punch, and it makes me bend in the face of mortality. At my darkest times in the last 2 years, the death was so oppressive, so omnipotent, it felt like everyone was going to die and everything was going to be lost. But the fragility of life is the tender underbelly of the lion of resistance. Because we as Indigenous peoples have something that our enemies will never have, and that's a cause worth dying for. When we mourn publicly during colonial onslaught as we do today, we force the world to bear witness to the glorious lives that our people lived. We honor the martyrs even and especially when those in power want to erase them from the pages of history. We see this in the war on children waged both against Native kids and Palestinian ones. We mourn the unmarked graves that thousands of Native children abused and killed in boarding school were laid to rest at. And we also mourn the thousands of Palestinian children buried under rubble. But when we mourn, we remember their names, the tenor of their lives, the space left in the heart of their families. From Hind Rajab, the 6-year-old Palestinian girl whose last cry for help haunted the world, to John Parker, the Ojibwe boy who was stolen from White Earth Reservation, we will honor all our martyrs. We honor Crazy Horse and commit to fight in his legacy. We honor Anas al-Sharif and promise to speak truth to power. We honor Hannah Harris and Fatima Hassouna and vow to avenge every murdered and missing Indigenous and Palestinian woman and relative. In this way, by mourning, we say, bearing witness can never be enough. To honor our ancestors, you have to join the resistance. When I spoke here last year, I shared that to be Indigenous is to hold a sacred, even prophetic relation to our lands. And while that bond is unbreakable, the truth is that spirits can be broken. Our destiny is not written. And in many ways, apocalypse is already upon us. 95% of homes in Gaza have been destroyed. Entire bloodlines have been wiped out. And here on these lands, masked agents of the colonial state roam our streets, abducting our neighbors. Austerity and greed are draining the paychecks of working people to line the pockets of the world's first trillionaire. Friends and relatives, the capitalist Armageddon is upon us. And so we have to start fighting like we might lose our future. That's why I'm so honored to be held a space in this powerful gathering of Indigenous relatives, because we Palestinians are not the only ones to survive and resist the apocalypse of colonial genocide. Native people, from the Wampanoag of these lands to the Taino of the islands to the Tongva of the West Coast, have emerged from colonial genocide, still resisting. To be amongst a people who know what it means to be steadfast and resist, no matter the cost and no matter the odds, it is a reminder to us all that we have a legacy to uphold. Whenever I fear, as a Palestinian, our cultural extinction, I remember how the Kanaka Maoli resisted the near elimination of their language, and in the span of a couple decades, raised an entire generation of native Hawaiian speakers. Or I remind myself of the Wampanoag Language Reclamation Project that revitalized the ancestral language of this very land. There are thousands of examples of Indigenous resistance, from the battle for Wounded Knee to the Gilboa prison break to the release of Leonard Peltier. And it is such an honor to be sharing the stage with so many of my heroes today. For Keisha, Jean-Luc, Matoin, Juan, and Leonard Peltier, I never thought this day would come. These examples of Indigenous resistance are proof that we can beat back this ceaseless colonial violence. It is proof that Indigenous victory will prevail against all odds. And living this legacy of resistance, it isn't easy or glamorous. And I know everybody here knows that. It's exhausting. I'm exhausted. We've been fighting with barely a moment to come up for air for 2 years. We as Palestinians have been carrying the mantle of resistance for a century. And my relatives here, many have been holding that torch of resistance against colonialism for half a millennia and more. But if we let that exhaustion overcome us, not only are we abandoning our legacy, but we're letting our oppressors distract us from the fact that we are actually winning. Monsters. Monsters are biting when they're wounded. Empires are most brutal when they are gasping for air. And as our comrades in the Red Nation say, for our earth to live, capitalism and colonialism must die. And they are dying. As of last month, Israel has invested $145 million in an AI propaganda machine. Does that sound like an empire that is popular and successful? Donald Trump's fascist coalition is falling apart at the seams as the powerful elites try to outrace each other out of the Epstein files. Yes, my comrades and relatives, the empire is collapsing under its own weight. The gluttony of colonialism will be its downfall. But it is up to us to strike the final blow in the cracking facade of this violence factory. It is your obligation. Never let anyone tell you that our resistance does not matter. It is your power and our only hope. To be Indigenous is to be held a space in a shared struggle if we promise to commit to it. Promise to join an organization, promise to campaign to evict war profiteers from our land, to call out complicit politicians, to build communal institutions, and to foster collective resistance. We can never let our oppressors set the confines of our struggle. They cannot make us small. When they want to put us on the defense, in moments of acute violence, in moments like these, we demand more, not less. Land back is the demand, and we cannot back down. Collective liberation is the horizon, and we march until we reach it. We are undone and remade in mourning, in an upward spiral towards the sun of freedom reaches all of us across all of these lands. So, on this day of mourning, we say to our martyrs and our ancestors, rest. We will continue the struggle. And so I want to close with a chant in Arabic, if you'll allow me. It goes, it means, "O martyrs, rest, rest. We will continue the struggle." Ya shahid irtah, irtah. Ya shahid irtah, irtah. احنا نوصل الكفاح. احنا نوصل الكفاح. يا شهيد ارتاح ارتاح. احنا نوصل الكفاح. Free Palestine, land back. Thank you, everyone.
Yes. And I want folks to look from one end of Coles Hill to the other. I want you to know that today thousands of people have descended upon Coles Hill for this action. Because the media, when they get out there, they love to talk us down. Oh, it's a couple of hundred people. No. You know the truth. You see it. Thousands of people that are here. And of course, in our thousands and in our millions, all Palestinians. So, long live the Intifada. Long live the Intifada. Now I want y'all to, we're going to save some of that energy because what we're doing now is we're lining up. So we already have our lead banner gone down the street. The tricky part here is